when we started, we were on chapter 7 of that calendar. And the reason we started also with chapter 7 is because when every devotee or many devotees as possible are coming together and reciting a chapter every day, it definitely sends out a transcendental vibration in the ether, and it helps the world. It helps everybody with this wonderful transcendental vibration of Bhagavad Gita. So today we are making a start on a very auspicious day of Akshay Tritiya with the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. But we will just cover the introduction, and if the time allows, I will give an overview of the first chapter, and then from tomorrow we will start with the text one of first chapter. So those of you who are joining us for the first time, I'd like to welcome you all for this program called Chat Chapter a Day of Bhagavad Gita. And I'd like to share with you the format of the program so that you're aware of it. What we do is we go through, we chant a chapter of Bhagavad Gita together. And when the chapters are longer, we divide them into two parts. So chapter one is being divided into two parts because one, it takes a long time to finish reciting the whole chapter. But we will be doing the entire chapter, but over perhaps 4 weeks. So what we will do is now we will be reciting text 1 to text 24 together, both Sanskrit and English. And we have normally two devotees who take turns to recite. One devotee will recite Sanskrit and the other will recite English. And we will all recite with them behind the muted mics. And after the recitation is complete, I will then go through the introduction today. But normally what would happen is the devotee facilitating the session will go through the text and the purport. So we will start with text one tomorrow like this. So by the time we finish the entire chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the first chapter, you would have had the opportunity to go through every single purport from that chapter, and your understanding of the that particular chapter will deepen with that. So with that, I am going to make a start and invite our reciters for this evening. It is Sridham and Yash who will lead us into the recitation of this chapter of 1. My name is Divyanam Das. We took on this service, as I said, a year ago, and we like to carry on. And today we are making a new start on this auspicious day of Akshay Tritiya. It is explained that this day, if you do any spiritual activity, the fruit which you get today for that spiritual activity, you will be getting throughout your rest of the life, actually. That's how auspicious this wonderful day is. It is today that the Ganga actually descended onto this earthly planet. It is today that Lord Krishna met with his friend Sridham, not Sridham, sorry, Sudama. So there are many spiritual significance events which took place on this very auspicious day today. So I'm now going to be sharing my screen with all of you. So you will be able to see the verses and recite with us. And I will now ask Yash and Sridham, who are together, they can unmute themselves and lead us into the recitation of this beautiful chapter from text 1 to text 24. So just bear with me. I'm just going to bring the text 1. Okay, so over to you, Yash and Sridham. We are all ready to recite the first 24 verses from this chapter. Please begin with the invocation prayer, Sridham. Om Namo Bhagavate
Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Dhritarashtrava. Okay. Dhritarashtra Vacha, Dharmashetra Kurukshetra Samaveda Yuyutsavaha, Mamaka Pandavashcheva, Kirmakurvata Sanjaya. Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjaya, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage of Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do? Sanjaya Vacha Drishvatu Bandavanikam Yudam Duryodhanastada Acharya Mupasangamya Raja Vachanam Abravit. Sanjaya said, O king, after looking over the army, arranged in military formation by the sons of Pandu. Son of Pandu, King Duryodhana went to his teacher and spoke the following words. Pashyetam Panditputranam Acharya Mahatim Chamum Vyudam Drupada Putrena Tava Shishyena Dhimata. O my teacher, behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupada. Atrasura Maheshvasa Bimarjuna Samayudi Yudano Viratascha Dropadascha Maharataha. Here in this army are many heroic bowmen, equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna. Great fighters like Yudana, Virata and Drupada. Drishtaketuschet Chekitanaha Kashirajascha Viryavan Urjit Kunti Bojascha Shebyascha Narapungavaha. There are also great heroic powerful fighters like Drishtaketu, Chekitana, Kashiraja, Purajit, Kunti Bhoja and Shaibya. Yudamanyushta Vikranta Puta Maudascha Viryavan Sobhadro Dropadeyascha Sarva Eva Maharataha. There are the mighty Yudhamanyu, the very powerful Amoja, the son of Subhadra, and the sons of Draupadi. All these warriors are great chariot fighters. Asmakam tu Vishishtaya Tanibodad Vijotama Nayaka Mama Sainyasya Samgyartam Tan Bravimite. But for your information, O best of the Brahmana, let me tell you about the captains who are especially qualified to lead my military force. Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha Kripascha Samitin Jayaha Ashvatama Vikarnascha Somadatis There are personalities like you, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashwatthama, Vikarna, and the son of Somadatta called Burishwava, who are always victorious in battle. Anyacha bhavaha shura madartet yakta jivitaha nana shastra pramaranaha sarva yuddha vishardaha. There are many other heroes who are prepared to lay down their life for my sake. All of them are well equipped with different kinds of weapons and are all experienced in military science. Aparyaptam tadasmakam balam bhishma birakshitam paryaptam tva idam echam balam bhima birakshitam. Our strength is immeasurable and we are perfectly protected by grandfather Bhishma, whereas the strength of the Pandavas, carefully protected by Bhima, is limited. Anyeshu cha sarveshu yata bhagam avastitaha Bhishmameva birakshantu bhavantaha sarva evahi. All of you must now give full support to grandfather Bhishma as you stand at your respective strategic points of entrance into the phalanx of the army. Tasya sanjayanam harsham guru vreda pitamaha shimha nadam vinadyochyahi shankam dadmo pratapavan. Then Bhishma, the great valiant grandson of the Kuru dynasty, the grandfather of the firefighters, blew his conch shell very loudly, making a sound like the roar of a lion, giving Duryodhana joy. Tataha sankascha beryascha panava nakagomukaha sahasevya vayanyanta sashadastumulobhava. After that conch shell, drums and bugles, trumpets and horns were all suddenly sounded. The combined sound was tumultuous. Tataha sveter heryukte mahati sandanestito Madhavaha Pandavaschaiva Divya Shanka Pradadmatuhu. On the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna, stationed on a great chariot drawn by white horses, sounded their transcendental conches. Panchajanyam Shikesho Devadattam Dhananjayaha Paundram Dadmo Mahashankam Bhima Karma Vrikodaraha. Lord Lord Krishna blew his conch shell called Panchajanya. Arjuna blew his, the Devadatta, and Bhima, the voracious eater and performer of a Herculean task, blew his terrific conch shell called the Pongra. Anantavijayam Raja Kundipatro Yudhistharaha Nakulaha Sahadevascha Sugosha Mani Pushpako Kashyascha Parameshvasaha Shikandi cha Maharataha Drishtadyumno Viratascha Satyakischa Parajitaha Dropada Dropadeyascha Sarvashaha Prativipate Sobhadrashcha Mahabahu Shankam Dadmo Pratak Pratak. King Yudhishthira, the son of Kunti, blew his conch, the Ananta Vijaya, and Nakula and Sahadev blew the Shugosha and Mani Pushpaka, the great archer of the king of Kashi, the great fighter Shikandi, Vishudyumna Virata, the unconquerable Satyaki, Drupada, the sons of Draupadi and others. O kings, such as the mighty son of Subhadra, all blew their respective conches. Sagashodartarashtranam Ridyani Vyadarayat Nabashta Prativem Cheva Tumulo Bayunandayan. The blowing of these different conch shells became uproarious, vibrating both in the sky and on the earth. It shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. Atavya Vistitan Drishtva Dartarashtran Kapidvajaha Pavrite Shastra Sampate Danur Udyama Pandavaha Rishikesham Tadavakyam Idamaha Mahipate. At the time, Arjuna, the son of Pandu, seated in the chariot bearing the flag marked with Hanuman, took up his bow and prepared to shoot his arrows. O king, after looking at the sons of Dhritarashtra, brought in military array, Arjuna then spoke to Lord Krishna these words. Arjuna vacha sena yaruba yor madhye ratam stapaya mechuta yavad etan shiksheham yoduga mama vastitan kermaya sahayo davyam asmin rana samudyame. Arjuna said, O infallible one, please draw my chariot between the two armies, so that I may see those present here who desire to fight, and with whom I must contend in this great trial of arms. Yotyamanama vaksheham ya et etra samagataha dartarashtrasya durbeder yude priya chikirsavaha. Let me see those who have come here to fight, wishing to please the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra. Sanjaya vacha eva mukto rishikesho gudakeshena bharata senaryaruvayor madhya stapayitvar totamam. Sanjaya said, O descendant of Bharata, having thus been addressed by Arjuna, Lord Krishna drew up the fine chariot in the midst of the armies of both parties. Are we doing the whole chapter? No, we're only doing up to 24.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Sridham and Yash. We are reciting only 24 texts because what we have done is, if the chapters are longer, we have divided in two parts of the month. So we will just be reciting for the next 22 to 23 days these 24 verses every single day. And I'm sure all of you are already feeling much better having recited these wonderful verses of the first chapter. So tomorrow we will be picking up on the text one. We have different facilitators every day. We have Divya Gaurangi Mataji tomorrow evening, who will be taking us through the journey of the first text from chapter one. But today I thought I'll cover a little bit of a background of an introduction to Bhagavad Gita. And if time allows us, we will do an overview of the entire first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So I'm going to share my screen and you'll be able to see hopefully a presentation very shortly. So just before we begin, I'd like to offer my prayers to our spiritual masters. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyat Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhe Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे. So I seek the blessings of our founder Acharya, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, my spiritual master, His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu, and all the assembled Vaishnavas who have very kindly given their an hour this evening to this vibration of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, one of the very important literature in the whole world actually. So let's begin the introduction. Just few things I wanted to mention and cover, and they are, if you could, when you join the call, if you could stay muted towards the end, you will have an opportunity to ask any question and answers either through the chat button or by unmuting yourself. But if you can keep yourself on mute, that will be really nice. And it's nice to see many devotees leaving their cameras on, making it very, very personal. So it's always good to see the faces of the devotees who have joined in. Warm welcome to everybody to Chat Chapter a Day of Bhagavad Gita. We are just starting the introduction of Bhagavad Gita. So just before we begin the actual intro of the Bhagavad Gita, I thought let's cover some 12 aims of the Shastric study, that why we should study the Shastras and how they can help us in our life. So the first thing it happens is it helps us to memorize and recall the knowledge or the theoretical element of the knowledge which forms the foundation of our ongoing progress in Krishna consciousness. So we get to know through the knowledge, and this knowledge helps us to have a stronger foundation of the principles which we will start to imbibe and try to follow in our life in the process of reading these shastras. That's the first thing. The second thing, it helps us to understand how Krishna consciousness theologically and particularly through the studying it from a wide range of perspective and through developing thoughtfulness and introspection. So the second element is understanding. After we have got the knowledge, now we want to understand and how this knowledge can impact us. Then what happens once we have the knowledge and understanding? Then we have the ability to see through the eyes of the Shastras. Our acharyas explain that we have four defects in the human form of life, and those are that we can make mistakes, we are prone to make mistakes, our senses are imperfect. We may see from far a rope lying and we may think that's a snake. So that goes to shows our senses are imperfect. We have tendency to cheat, and we are illusion. So these, with these four defects, we are not really be able to imbibe the shastra. So it's very important we able to hear the shastra and then see it from the shastra's perspective, and ultimately it helps us to realize the scripture by reestablishing our relationship with Krishna, and helps us remain within the Krishna consciousness process. And how we stay by seeing through the eyes of the scriptures really will bring the full realization actually, and that will help us to have a very Krishna conscious aim in our life, and eventually bringing us to the complete realization of the supreme personality of Godhead or the absolute truth. The fourth is that it helps us to apply the Krishna consciousness theology, and how with reference to the external practices, like we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, we perform arti at a certain time, we sing certain bhajans, and all of this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita will help us to understand how these practices fit into this knowledge. And then there will be an inner development to help us appropriately behave in our community. Because you see, what distinguishes a human being from any other species of life is that he has a small degree of free will by which he can imbibe certain etiquettes, especially for us who are trying to practice devotional service. We call them Vaishnav etiquettes. And that really means when we are applying those Vaishnav etiquettes and behaving in certain way, that brings about the personal application of what we are understanding and reading in the Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures. The fifth thing which happens is it enhances our desire and ability to share Krishna consciousness with others. In the 18th chapter, which we just concluded, we heard from Krishna telling Arjuna that, Arjuna, please note that there is nobody more dear to me in this world than the one who actually tells others about this sacred conversation of ours. All that conversation which has been taking place between Arjuna and Krishna, Krishna is saying, if you go and tell others or you give a Bhagavad Gita to somebody else, there is nobody more dear to me than that person. The sixth thing happens is it helps us create a society through which, which permeates on the basis of the shastric knowledge, and then we are able to influence individually, socially, morally, theologically. So look at the whole application of the Bhagavad Gita in a theological way. The seventh benefit is that it helps to facilitate devotees in understanding the and appreciating the mood and the mission of Srila Prabhupada. You see, there are so many editions of Bhagavad Gita, more than 300 editions. But when you read this particular Bhagavad Gita as it is, you will understand why this Bhagavad Gita is so sacred and how this Bhagavad Gita helps us to transform our heart. Every other edition will help. We may get some tips, something, some idea, which is all very nice. But the real problem lies within our heart. And that can only go when we are connected with the absolute truth, or the science of devotional service, which is coming in the parampara system as it is. And that's why it's very important to understand the mood and what Srila Prabhupada is trying to tell us, perpetuating that understanding within the society and its members, mood and mission, and then with the members. Finally, to ensure that the devotees develop moral and academic integrity in the interpretation and evaluation and application of Shastric knowledge. It also helps us to cultivate a deep acceptance of spiritual authority of the Shastra, that how our life should be governed by the Shastra, and a mood of open and honest inquiry and a desire to factually understand and realize the import of Vedic knowledge. To help build, maintain students' faith and conviction in the process of Krishna consciousness, the Shastra as its foundation, and to develop our analytical, interpretive, and evaluative skills. When somebody understands Bhagavad Gita, if you go out in the world, whether you're a student, whether you are a person who's working, or you're running a home as a mother, you get a perception in life which helps you align your life in a very meaningful way. Every day when you get up, from the time you get up to go to bed, you will feel a sense of fulfillment, you'll feel a sense of nourishment, that wow, you've spent a day which was really worth it. I've read a chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is telling this to Arjuna, but he's actually trying to give me a lesson through this verse. I'm very grateful to Krishna for bringing me to this platform. So that's the kind of understanding we get. And finally, it gives us an encouragement of having an enhanced desire to study Srila Prabhupada books more and more. And once you read, the whole thing is, if you make Bhagavad Gita as part of your daily habit of reading, reciting one chapter by coming here or in your own time, you will see that every day of yours it will be like well spent, and you will feel so grateful that somehow or other you're connected with the Bhagavad Gita. And that will help you gain some skills to see. One thing I must share with all of us is that Bhagavad Gita doesn't guarantee that all our problems will go away. But what it does give is a ability or a strength to maneuver those problems and have perspective. Like we tell often, oh, so many problems I have, so many problems I have. But when Krishna is there in our life, then Krishna is able to see and give us a instruction through the Bhagavad Gita on how to see that problem as our part of our our karma and try to learn lessons from it and try to grow with it. Rather than going through it, we grow through the Bhagavad Gita. That's the main aspect of Bhagavad Gita. We don't go through the problems, we grow through the problems, and we are able to see the real thing behind those problems. So here is a quick summary of what is covered in the Bhagavad Gita as an introduction. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ishvara, the Supreme Lord, is that's why Prabhupada emphasized that in the other Bhagavad Gita, somebody will take over Krishna and say, I think like this, I think like that. But that's not a good idea, because the main message of the Bhagavad Gita, or the spirit of the Bhagavad Gita, is in the Gita itself. When Arjuna accepts Krishna as the Param Brahma, Param Dhama, Param Pravitram, so Krishna is accepting, Arjuna is accepting Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead. So that's the first thing which has been described in Bhagavad Gita is Ishvara. Then we learn the Jiva, the soul, the living entity, the soul living within the body. Then the third thing we learn in Bhagavad Gita is about the Prakriti, or the material nature. The fourth thing we learn about in Bhagavad Gita is the time, or the Kala, how time is also a representation of the Krishna in form of death, which comes and takes away everything. And finally, we learn about the karma in the Bhagavad. So these are the five essential topics which we will be discussing and going through in this section of in the across the Bhagavad Gita. So the first six chapters are covered of the Bhagavad Gita as Karma Yoga, and we will see as we get it more into the detail. Right now, our plan is at least to start from here, go to the sixth chapter, because we've already done 7 to the 18th chapter, but there will be plenty of opportunities as we get closer to decide whether we again continue and carry on, or we start Srimad Bhagavatam. So that we will take a call as we get closer to the time. The 7 to the 12th chapter are Bhakti Yoga, and the 13 to the 18th chapter, the fundamental or the foundation is Jnana Yoga. Now, one may think, why is Bhakti Yoga in the middle? In the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada explains that how there is a king, when he goes from one province to another province or another place, he's normally protected by the army in the between. There are people, the ministers or the caretakers or the servants are walking in the front, or there are horses or elephants, and then there are people at the back, and the king is nicely protected right in the middle. So similarly, the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhakti Yoga of the Bhagavad Gita, which is the essence of this wonderful literature, is very beautifully protected right in the middle chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. Another analogy is that the best part of the sandwich is the filling, which gives the real taste, which gives the real palate, or we really enjoy when we eat a sandwich. So similarly, the bhakti is the most essence of the Bhagavad Gita, which is nicely protected in the 7 to the 12 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. Another point Srila Prabhupada covers, as I said, it's a secret, the goal of the Shastra. you know Bhakti Yoga gives life to both karma and jnana. You see, when you perform devotional service, Bhagavatam explains that the karma and jnana become the natural byproduct of your devotional service. You don't have to separately endeavor to do karma yoga, or just to do the knowledge. Just through the process of coming to the bhakti yoga, one automatically gets detachment as well as the knowledge, actually. So that is why this secret is only revealed to those who have proven their sincerity. So in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna Prabhupada writes in the introduction, there are a few points I wanted to cover. The first and the foremost point Prabhupada says in the introduction is that we may have many doubts in our mind when we come to scriptures, but the first thing we should try to accept, even if we do not practically understand or accept, theoretically, we should accept that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. He is the uh, person who's the creator, he's the supreme proprietor. But even if you do not understand all of that, just accept for time being that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, and then you begin reading Bhagavad Gita. And then you see how your understanding develops and it deepens every time you read a particular verse. Even today, like when I read Bhagavad Gita again and again, Like Mahatma Gandhi says that there is a quote on Bhagavad Gita that when the disappointment stares in my face, when I don't see a ray of hope anywhere, in the midst of all that sorrow and ocean, I turn to the Bhagavad Gita. And even if I just read one verse, in the midst of all that sorrow, I begin to smile, and I derive a great joy from the life. So that is how beautiful Bhagavad Gita is. In one sense, it's like a mango which is fully ripe. No matter from where you bite, it's going to be sweet. So so firstly, we have to accept that. Couple of other points which Prabhupada makes it very important in the introduction is that we cannot understand Bhagavad Gita until and unless we try to appreciate the position of Arjuna as a devotee and as a friend of Krishna. When we come in that humility position, my Lord, I'm a fool number one. I may have read many things, I may have chanted many things like Hanuman Chalisa, I may have done many yagya, many kathas, I may have done many things in my past life. But right now, I am coming to you as if I do not know anything, and that is my position. If you so desire, please, Bhagavad Gita, you are a revealed scripture. Kindly reveal to me your secrets of Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Jnana Yoga and make my life successful. And if that is our prayer, then the Bhagavad Gita is wide open for us. And it'll take us right into the deep into the ocean where we can really access the jewels because the jewels are sitting right at the bottom of the ocean. The third thing Prabhupada says in the introduction is that if we really want to understand the essence of Bhagavad Gita, he gives an analogy that if you want to taste the honey, you can't, you have to go and put your finger in the honey bottle inside and take the nectar and put it in your mouth. You can't really get to know the real taste of the honey if you're just going to be on the surface or outside the bottle. So, similarly, the idea is we have to imbibe that spirit of devotion, that submissiveness, and surrender to Krishna to have this knowledge then accessible to us. To we have to, in essence, become a bhakti yoga, a bhakti yogi, in order to understand the real meaning of this wonderful literature like Bhagavad Gita. And the final point I wanted to mention from the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita is that you see, when we go to the doctor, a doctor will tell us this is your problem, this is the disease you have, and here is the medicine I'm going to give you. Please take this particular medicines in the morning once and in the evening once. And another medicine you only take once a day. So he gives us a particular prescription according to our disease. Now, when we go home and if we decide to use our own whim or decide, oh, this is how I'm going to take the medicine, it will not have a profound effect actually. It has to be taken by as per the prescription given by the doctor. So, similarly, we have to accept the message of the Bhagavad Gita as it is given by Lord Krishna. You see, Srila Prabhupada worked so hard. You know, why did he give us this commentary called as it is, if you think about it? There were so many commentaries available in the world. The only reason Prabhupada gave us this commentary is that so that we can become the devotees of Lord Krishna and go back to the spiritual world. Otherwise, we can get many ideas, many conceptions, but it will not change our heart. That's why you know the famous story when Prabhupada like was writing the script of Bhagavad Gita, giving the purports in Calcutta in those days. One day he went out and his good wife, for the sake of buying tea, because there was not much money, she sold those manuscripts of the Bhagavad Gita and she bought tea from it. And when Prabhupada came home, he said he was looking for those manuscripts, so he wanted to write more. He said, where is the Bhagavad Gita? Where is my manuscript? She wouldn't say a word until Prabhupada searched around the whole house and came to her and he said, where is it? She said, I sold it for buying a tea. And that's the time Prabhupada said, it's tea or me. And she chose, obviously, decided to choose tea, and Prabhupada walked out of the house. And again, not only once, he wrote it again and again when he went to US in America. Again, his stuff was stolen and the manuscripts went with it. And then again, Prabhupada wrote it for the third time, and finally it was printed by Macmillan. We will go through that story for another day. So Prabhupada went through such a hardship to print this Beautiful, the most beautiful book on the planet, and to give it to us. And we may take it for granted. Prabhuji, I have Gita. I know everything. Prabhuji, look in my, I have this beautiful bookshelf, and in the bookshelf you see it's there, and you see it's so beautiful that I haven't even taken out the plastic out of the book yet. Now that you have come my home, you open it. You see, in India, I'm going to use. I'll explain in English. You go in the court in India, and people present Bhagavad Gita, and there they say, please put your hand on the Gita and repeat after me. आप जो भी कहेंगे सच कहेंगे, सच के सिवा कुछ नहीं कहेंगे. So what it means is, whatever you are going to say, you will say the truth, and you will not say anything but the truth. But the point is, like our Gaurang Prabhu says, that first, in order to say the truth, you need to know the truth. And the truth of the life is inside the Bhagavad Gita. So please open that Bhagavad Gita, or take it out from that beautiful red cloth which is there. And it is a worshipable literature. But the best way to worship Ramayana, to best way to worship Bhagavatam, best way to worship Bhagavad Gita is by reading it, by studying it, by discussing it with others. That is the best worship of Bhagavad Gita. You can definitely do the arti and you will get some benefit. But when you open the literature, when you read it, when you go deep into it, that's when you're really worshipping it. And that's why Krishna is telling in the 18th chapter, he's giving a beautiful shloka. He's saying, my dear Arjuna, whoever reads this sacred conversation of mine between me and you, that person will worship me by his intelligence. Krishna is making it very, very clear. There is no doubt about it. So it's very, very important we understand the spirit. So now that was a brief introduction. I mean, there is these days Radhesham Prabhu in Pune is giving 108 sessions on the Bhagavad Gita on the YouTube. You're more than welcome to go there, because he will go systematically and spending 3 days in covering just the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita. Because we are on a journey here where we'll be starting the text one tomorrow, I wanted to just give you a bit of a snapshot and tell you how important this wonderful literature is, and give you a bit of a background. Now, you all know that I didn't go through the whole Mahabharata aspect, that where it was spoken, Krishna is there, Arjuna is there in the battlefield. You all pretty much have an idea about that. But I just cover some important items as to why the Shastra is important, why Bhagavad Gita as it is, what is so special about this particular edition of Bhagavad Gita, what should be our spirit and mood to understand Bhagavad Gita. So that's the brief introduction I've given to all of you, and for my own purification and understanding, which will help us build the foundation to get into the first chapter tomorrow with the text one. But I will give a quick overview of what is happening in this first chapter. So, in the first section of this chapter, which is setting the scene, um, there is first was Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsava Mamaka Pandavaschaiva Kim Akurvata Sanjaya. So this text tomorrow Divya Gaurangi Mataji is going to discuss in detail, but suffice to say, now Sanjaya is going to narrate a dialogue between Arjuna and Krishna to Dhritarashtra. The scene is being set, and all these verses from 1.1 to 1.13 is all about the army, who's on whose side. And then from the second section, from text 13 to 20, then there are some signs given of the victory. There are certain conch shells are being blown. That again, Prabhupada goes in the purport and explains very beautifully how these conch shells are so amazing, and that's why having a conch shell and blowing it before the arti is so auspicious for your whole house. But these conch shells are not like our conch shells. They are very special conch shells, like called Panchajanya, and there are many more which were resounded in the battlefield, and they all have certain significance. And Prabhupada will go into the purport, and you'll hear more about that as we discuss. Then in the third section, which is from text 21 to 46, we see various arguments of Arjun, that why should I be fighting? These are my friends, my relatives. What good am I going to get by killing them? The whole family, or the generations are going to be, will be degraded because of our activities of fighting with our kingsmen. It won't bring any good. So Arjuna is being a very moral person, giving all these wonderful, so-called wonderful points to Krishna throughout in this section. and he will then get some answers from Krishna, who then actually calls him nothing but a fool initially, because he says, Arjuna, I've spent so much of time with you, but now let me get to the point. Let me tell you some essence of life and what you should be doing and what you should not be doing. And that conversation constitutes the entire, like, Bhagavad Gita as we go progress by progress. So, some points on about the place itself, the significance of Dharmashetra, uh, that aspect of something which is essential to its nature. So, you see, the water, what is the nature of the water? The nature of the water is liquid. So, similarly, the nature of the living entity is to serve. We have, even although we have this body right now, but as a soul, we our propensity or our actual nature is to be served. Jivera sarup hoye krishnera nitya das. And serving God according to shastra means real dharma. So that is the significance of the dharma. And in the Bhagavatam also it is mentioned, yato dharma, what is that verse? Maybe somebody can remind me. I'm just trying to.
Save pumsa parodharma.
Save pamso purad, save pamso
Parodharma
dharma
yator
to
bhakti.
bhakti adhokshache ahituki apriyata yayatma suprasidati. So Rupa Mataji, why don't you give us an approximate translation, since you have mentioned about that verse?
Hare Krishna. The prime duty
Supreme
of
occupation, yes.
the supreme occupation, yeah, the supreme occupation of every human being or every living entity is to worship Adhoksaja or Krishna. Um, the devotion should be ahetuki, that means unmotivated and uninterrupted, to completely satisfy the self.
Thank you so much. So that is
Thank you.
our
Hare
real
Krishna.
occupation. So here the word dharma comes when we do the service, keeping the God in the center, or according to the basis of the on the shastra, that constitute real dharma. So that is the significance, that, of course, because Krishna is there on the battlefield, and that itself becomes an auspicious place. But wherever Krishna is there, wherever his devotee Arjuna is there, that means that that place in itself is so auspicious. That's why the land of Kurukshetra is important. But the main significance of the word dharma kshetra is this, that our constitutional position is to serve according to the shastra, which is the real dharma. So here you see, in these chapters, you'll cover how Duryodhana is gonna so happily describe who all are there in his army. He's going to tell Bhishma Pitama. He's going to tell he's going to tell Dronacharya. He's going to talk about various other um, army individuals who are so strongly standing. He thinks that he's going to win the battle. And then there is a descriptions of the sons of Pandu from the verse 1 to 13. Then, as I said, there will be signs of victory given in text 14 to 20, and those signs will come in different form, like the conch shell, like Panchajanya, Devadatta, Pondara, Ananta Vijay, Sugosha, Mani Pushpaka, the flag on Arjuna's chariot of Hanuman. So all these were different signs which are being Krishna, are being given in this conversation. And then, of course, the land of Kurukshetra in itself. So you'll see these different signs from this text 14 to text 20. And then from text 21 to 27, as I said, you'll go through those doubts. Arjuna is going to start asking, oh, I don't know whether it's a good idea. You brought me here. Like, Sridham read that verse, take me right in the middle of the army. And now Krishna is going to take him, and Arjuna is going to say, oh, maybe I shouldn't have asked you to brought me here. I'm going to have to fight with my kingsmen. So all those doubts he's going to go through. And now Krishna is saying, behold, the Kurus are assembled here. And he's telling him who all are there to Arjuna. So Arjuna's doubts, which are based, will come on basis of compassion. How can I kill my kingsmen and guru? And after killing them, how am I supposed to enjoy? Because the whole kingdom will be tainted with the blood of my relatives. What meaning will that kingdom will have to me? the saintliness and fear of sinful reactions. Now Arjuna is being a moral person, really worried, I'm going to have to take the sins of killing all these people, and by killing such great men I'll incur sin. They are worthy of my worship. Then he's going to give, as if he's now going to give a philosophy to Krishna, that the elders of my family will be killed, the women's will be populated, the generations after generation has to go through all of these things. And this, he'll go through this, how the whole society will be degraded. Like there will be the superiors who will be killed, then there'll be a destruction of the eternal family tradition, irreligion will predominate in the society, and because of that women will become unchaste and polluted. And when the women become polluted, there will be unwanted progeny. Then all kinds of community projects and family welfare activities are going to be devastated. So it's going to bring a complete mess. Krishna, why am I supposed to be doing this? These are the doubts Arjuna is going to impose in this chapter. And then finally, he's going to put everything away, his arrows, his bow, and he's going to sit down in the text 46 and completely overwhelmed with the grief. And that's how we're going to conclude this beautiful chapter 1. So I like to thank all of you for being with me for the last half an hour, in allowing me to give you a little bit of an introduction of the Bhagavad Gita and an overview of the chapter 1. And tomorrow we will be starting with the text 1, and we will be discussing the text 1. So every day we will be discussing one text after we recite the 24 texts together. So at this point, I would like to invite, if anybody has any comments, any questions, or any reflections. Reflection is not necessarily a question, but it is a concept which stuck in your mind, something which you felt was worth taking back from the presentation, from the monologue, or from any of the verses which you read from today together with us, or how helpful did you find the session. So you can just either give those reflection, you can type using a chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask your question, or reflect back anything. So I have a few devotees. Divya Gaurangi Mataji is saying, Himani Mataji, we can share the Mangla Charan site. So they were, sorry, let me just go through some reflections. So devotees thank Sridham and Yash for the recitation. Chat team for restarting the Bhagavad Gita Sangha from the beginning. Thank you, Himani Mataji. Is there a Sanskrit prayer for praying to the Bhagavad Gita? Yes, Mataji. If you go to the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita, my request to all of you will be, when you come tomorrow for the session, please bring your Bhagavad Gita with you. Have a personal Bhagavad Gita of yours in your hand, because one thing is to read on the internet, which is always nice because we share the screen, but holding this Shastra in the hand, because you see, our hand needs some kind of beauty. And what is the most beautiful thing to hold is the Shastra. So when you hold the Bhagavad Gita, your body is getting purified, and you can see the verse in front of you, you can read everything, and it'll start to make some sense. So if you go to the introduction, there are prayers, there is a Upanishad prayers glorifying the Gita. You will see those prayers Prabhupada had mentioned. And before the introduction, the whole prayers to the parampara, starting with Om Jnana Timirandasya, they're also there, Mataji, as Divya Gaurangi Mataji mentioned. Uh, Hema Mataji is saying very nourishing intro and overview, Prabhuji. Well, Mataji, thank you. Not as nourishing as Radhesham Prabhu. He's a genius. Thank you for sharing that with me. Uh, then we have Shubhani Mataji. Thank you so much. Himani Mataji is saying Hare Krishna, Divya Gaurangi Mataji and Divyanam Prabhu. Thank you so much for your answers to my question. Amazing introduction. Anybody has any question at this point? Any comment? Anything you want to ask about chat? Yes, Dhanvantri Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Please accept my humble obeisances or glories to Srila Prabhupada. Yes,
Please
my
accept
question
mine.
is what some 120 million years ago, Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Krishna to Sun God. Then we see that it was spoken again in the Battle of Kurukshetra to Arjuna. So my question is, are there any other references or other instances where Bhagavad Gita was spoken, or only these two?
Okay, that's a very nice question, Mataji. So my understanding is, Mataji, that Krishna himself is telling to Arjuna that evam parampara praptam imam rajar sayo vidu sa kalenehe mahata yogo nashta parantapa. He's saying that this chain of knowledge is coming in a disciplic succession. And as you very well said from that verse, that he first gave this knowledge to sun god Vivashwan. Vivashwan then gave it to his son Manu. Manu gave it to King Ikshak. I struggle with some words. Ishwaku, yeah, Ishwaku. Thank you. Ishwaku. And like this, it's been coming. But Krishna is telling Arjuna in this Evam Parampara Praptam verse that at some point this disciplic succession was broken. And now I have personally come here to deliver this Bhagavad Gita. So Mataji, that's itself is in a reference where Krishna is saying that it is quite possible that the chain can be broken, and that's why Krishna tells us in the Bhagavad Gita that paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha duskritam dharma samsapna arthaya sambhavani yuge yuge. That whenever there is a decline in the religion, an increase and prominent increase in the irreligion, I will descend myself to give this knowledge again and again. That is why we see the Bhagavatam, which is being given, is about the Lord and also coming from the Lord, because Vyasadeva is none other than Lord Krishna himself. So to add more to your point, Mataji, there are, even in the heavenly planets, Bhagavad Gitas are available. They're being discussed. They're being talked about. So the Bhagavad Gita is an eternal literature which has been given to us directly by Lord Krishna 5,000 years ago. And because there are so many different universes, it is quite possible at some point or other Bhagavad Gita is already always been spoken by Krishna to Arjuna or by his pure devotee to somebody else. So it's a constant thing which is going on, Mataji, in that sense. So I hope that answers your question to some degree, Mataji.
Guruji, thank you. Thank you
Thank
very
you so
much,
much.
Hare Krishna.
So I have few more hands which were raised here. Is there anybody else who would like to ask?
Hare
Nitai
Krishna,
Mata, thank you so much for your encouragement. Hare Krishna, Palika Mataji.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisance. I just have a little question regarding our parampara.
Yes.
Because this time Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna.
Yes.
So is Arjuna is our parampara in the line of Madhvacharya and that way Vashdev and like that? Is he one of these parampara, or how is Arjuna a parampara?
Okay,
Please.
so that's a very good question, Mataji. So you see, Arjuna is in a direct parampara system from Krishna, because in his case he's getting that knowledge directly with Arjuna, and we are part of the same parampara. The reason being because Krishna gave this knowledge to Arjuna, and then because this knowledge was given by Arjuna and it was foretold by Sanjaya and it was recorded by, like we hear many things from acharyas, but like I've heard Ganesh ji. So it has been written, but more importantly, the same Bhagavad Gita is been coming in our Brahma Gaudiya Madhav Sampradaya, Palika Mataji, as
Yes,
you know.
yes, yes.
And the manuscript has been there for years, for thousands of years it was there. So I mean, it was Brahma Samhita which Bhakti Vinod Thakur had to go from, or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had to go into South India when he found the manuscripts,
Yes,
but
he wrote
Bhagavad
it down.
Gita was already existing, the verses were already there, various commentaries were already present, but Srila Prabhupada took all those commentaries and he gave the essence of all those commentaries of all the acharyas with the Bhagavad Gita and with the Bhagavatam as well.
Mhm.
So in that sense, it is very much we are part of the same parampara, which is coming in the from Lord Brahma directly, because it's part of the same chain. Especially if you open the Bhagavad Gita, you will see there is a disciplic succession mentioned, Mataji. Of all the names are there actually.
Yes, yes. Some of the, not all of them.
Not all of them, yeah, not all of them, because obviously this was spoken 5,000 years ago. But there is that connection is there, because Krishna gave it to Arjuna, but similarly Krishna gave all the knowledge to Brahma. It's coming in that same disciplic succession. So in that sense, it's part of that same bona fide parampara, Palika Mataji. I
Okay,
don't know if
thank you very much.
anybody else has anything they want to add to this point.
Thank
Please
you.
feel. Thank you, Palika Mataji. On page 34, Hema Mataji is saying Parampara Arjuna is not mentioned. Yes, he's not mentioned, but what I was trying to mention, Hema Mataji, is that our Parampara is the same Parampara of Krishna, coming from the Brahma side, because Krishna, as you know, spoke to sun god Vivashwan. So that chain is still carrying on. Although it got broken, he came and enlightened Arjuna, but we are still connected to Krishna in that sense actually. But his name may not be there in the book. Himani Mataji, you wanted to say something? Your hand is up.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you and your team so much for restarting this Sangha. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to your service, Prabhu, as well. Um, Prabhu, I wanted to ask, Prabhu, you mentioned earlier about free will, and I know this is kind of like an ongoing debate in amongst many devotees, actually. But you know, I mean, I just wanted to understand the concept of free will because I personally struggle to understand how we as humans could have any element of free will if everything is already predestined by Krishna. Like even in the even during the Kurukshetra war, like when Arjun sees all his relatives in the middle of the battlefield, and then Krishna says, actually, their fate is already determined by me. You're just the instrument in, just in implementing that, So if everything is already predestined by Krishna, then where's the element of free will?
Sure. So, Himani Mataji, yes, that's a very good point. Actually, in one sense, if you think about it, we actually have no free will because I was hearing a lecture recently of His Holiness Radha Govind Maharaj. I was hearing the Gajendra Moksham prayers, and he gives a beautiful Hindi katha in that. And in there, Maharaj was explaining that, you see, the real meaning of the free will actually only means you only have a free will as long as you are in the service of Krishna or you're surrendered to Krishna. Because what the word free means, to do what I like to do, and to do things which would bring the ultimate or the most auspicious thing for me actually in life. Because if I have if I'm able to get have a free will, so Maharaj was saying our free will can only be exercised when we are in the shelter of Krishna, because then the real meaning of free comes. Otherwise, if you see, if we make decisions, whatever that minute free will, as we hear from Prabhupada in our scriptures, the only free will we have is, okay, we have heard the Bhagavad Gita, we have heard from Krishna saying at the end of the chapter 18 that Sarva Dharmam Parityaja Mam Ekam Sharanam Raja. You surrender unto me. Now, our free will is only to that degree to find out what is the process of surrender. Is there a personality who came only 500 years ago who showed us how to surrender? Oh, that's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, our free will is only to find out how was the lifestyle of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what teachings did he give in the form of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Oh, there were so many devotees relationship, and devotees were acting in such a way. Oh, this is how I'm supposed to act. This is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I should be chanting. So that is called exercising our free will. And the more we exercise our free will in Krishna consciousness, that's what it really means to be free, Mataji. Otherwise, every other thing which we are going to exercise our free will is not free, because we are entangling ourselves for more reaction. So that can't be free. So I really like this idea that if you really want to understand what your free will, or what how much free will you have, whatever you have is under the shelter of Krishna, because everything else you may decide based on that so-called free will, but it's not free. It's not free in that sense, because it's going to bring you an ultimate entanglement. So in essence, actually Maharaj said we have no free will, because we are we are we are constantly under the modes of material nature. We hear, like, prakrite kriya manani guna karmani sarvasha ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. We are constantly thinking that we are the doers, but our modes are acting on us that they don't even let us decide what we want to do, Mataji. So from that aspect, yes, there is a little free will. When we come to our understanding, somebody is telling us, you do this, you follow that, then you're exercising your free will in a best possible free way. Otherwise, it's very difficult. Then we are, whatever we are doing in the material world, that's been dictated by the modes of material nature. There isn't anything free in that. I hope that gives you some idea, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu. That was so nicely explained. I totally agree with what you said because, I mean, if we're not serving Krishna, we're serving Maya. So in essence, we're not actually free at all. There's no such thing as free will in that sense if we're serving Maya. So thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji. Those were the words of Radha Govind Maharaj. I just repeated them. So thank you. I have a couple of questions devotees have asked here. Will the chapter 1 be recited on this chat group? Yes, Mataji, as we just recited at 7:45, please join in. Don't miss the recitation, because that is also a very important part of our session. because when you read these verses together behind the muted mics, you will see how subtly your consciousness is getting purified every day by reading these verses. Then I have Tapashi Basu, who's saying, I have been a Krishna Bhakta since childhood, but not necessarily part of your organization. Is there anything particular way that you do things? So, very nice question, Prabhu. My answer to you is that yes, we do certain things particularly, and those things are we chant, we dance, we eat. On a humorous side, these are the three main thing how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us to develop love for Krishna. But there are certain processes and which we follow, but they're all based on the Shastra like Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and based on the instructions coming from our acharyas, different acharyas actually, including Srila Prabhupada. So my humble request to you is that stay tuned to this Bhagavad Gita. As you read the Bhagavad Gita and hear the various devotees and their realization, you will start to see those ways, and you will start to or automatically unintentionally start follow them, because you're already a wonderful devotee of the Lord. You will pick up other nuances very, very easily. So stay tuned to the vibration of the Bhagavad Gita, and everything will be answered in the due course. um, I find it quite interesting to listen. Yeah, that's nice. Shipra Mataji saying the introduction was very clear and easy to understand. Thank you for explaining. Thank you so much. Mano Mohini Mataji saying Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much for the wonderful class. Tapashi. Okay, Tapashi, I hope I was able to answer your point. It's 8:48 now. We should conclude our session. We normally finish at 8:45. I'm sorry we have gone over by 3 minutes. I like to thank all of you for joining us for this session and creating this transcendental vibration on the most auspicious days of all the days. Every day is auspicious when you're reading Bhagavad Gita, let me tell you that. But it is sometimes we all need some inspiration, some motivation in this material world. So let's take Akshay Tritiya as a motivation, and let's take a small vow today that I will read at least one chapter of Gita every day. If I can't attend the chat, I'll read it in my own time, and I'll read one purport every day. It will only take 10 to 15 minutes of your day. And I'll just end on this note. My Guru Maharaj says that when you read one chapter of Bhagavad Gita, let's say if somebody has gone out of the house and they have not read Bhagavad Gita that day, and they got a news their house is on fire. Now their consciousness will be so much into that, oh my God, everything which I had is gone. They will constantly be so much in anxiety, and of course anybody will be. But the same person who managed to read a chapter of Bhagavad Gita and one verse, some understanding of Bhagavad Gita, and walked out and gets the news, he will also be sad. But the difference, there will be a difference in his consciousness. This person will be more looking from the scripture point of view and thinking it wasn't mine, and it may be whatever has happened. I mean, after a while he will start to see things like that way. There'll definitely be some change in the consciousness. That's the beauty of reading Bhagavad Gita every day. So on this day we pray to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Radha Gokulanand, Sitaram, Lakshman, Hanuman, and Gaurnitai, that they kindly give us their blessings so we can take on this message of Bhagavad Gita very seriously for ourselves, and also share it with the rest of the world as much as possible. Thank you for considering our request. Those who agree with this prayer, either in part or whole, kindly unmute yourself and say Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Hare
Hare
Krishna,
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 Thank
Hare
you so much,
Krishna.
everybody.
Thank you,
Vansha
Prabhuji.
kalpataruscha
Wonderful.
kripa
Hare
sindhu
Krishna.
bevacha patitanam
Pidane
pavnebhyo
Pavnebhyo
vaishnavebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo
namaha.
Namo
Srila
Namo.
Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Prabhuji,
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Prabhuji,
Thank
thank
you
you,
so much, Prabhu. Hare
Devotees.
Prabhuji,
Krishna.
thank
Thank
you.
you,
Divya
Prabhuji.
Prabhu ki jai.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you for joining. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and Chaitanya Prabhu. Thank you, Bina Mataji. Thank you, Sumati Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you, Madan Prabhu. Hare Prabhu.